All right, good evening, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order, and at this time, if you're able to rise, please do so for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome to our final budget work session for the budget for 25-26. Last Tuesday, the board approved a spending cap and then had a discussion over two different options where there was some pretty good discussion and questions about. After the board decided on one, we had chatted a little bit offline about different options that maybe we weren't all crazy about. And we're hoping to get some more options for us as a board to discuss. Friday, I reached out to Susan and Drew and asked them, along with the board, that if they could get us option C or some other options in here, which they graciously did in a very short period of time. So the board had the weekend to look this over and review this new option, which we'll talk about here as we proceed. But before that, I'll turn it over to Kim Furnish for a procedural motion here so we can go ahead and discuss a new option.
Yes, I have to give credit where credit's due. My husband, Mark, who is a parliamentarian and open meetings law expert based on his decades in the Senate, told me that we actually need to make a motion first before we start. So I moved to reconsider the vote held on May 27th, where we voted on option B in order to discuss and vote again on which option for the budget is best for the school.
Thank you. I need a second on that. Thanks, Kim. Any questions or comments on that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Right. So thank you, Kim. Thank you, Mark. All right. So in front of us, we have, as Jill just gave us from last week, we obviously have our A and B with the difference in the columns, and then tonight we have a scenario for A, B, and C. Who would like to start?
I'll start. I asked this question last week and you answered it, but now I'm confused why option C still has the minus $15,000 for the SRO. I thought the town of Glenville was giving us that money, regardless of the option we chose.
And they are.
Okay.
Drew, do you want to respond to the...
It's showing it coming out of the budget. That's what you asked. That's what it's showing.
But I thought it was coming out of the budget, but then I thought that they had said at the 11th hour they're going to give us that $15,000.
They did, and that's why it's coming out of the budget. It's a savings. It's a reduction.
Gotcha.
Option B doesn't have it coming out of the budget. So they put it back in for option C.
Got it.
Good question.
So I guess I'll start because I had brought up an option C last week when we were talking about different scenarios, because the big difference between the two was the three individuals. Well, let me strike individuals in three positions, two reading teachers and the librarian. And I thought maybe we could figure out some sort of compromise where maybe we don't have all three, and we can utilize some of that money to fix the vulnerabilities that Drew very kindly brought to our attention with respect to option A. So I see option C here seems to be doing that. And so I had a few questions about that. For me personally, it seemed of the three, the librarian would be the most, I don't want to say most suitable because I don't like the fact we're losing a librarian position, but the most appropriate of the choices if we're going to lose one of the three of the positions. And I'm assuming, based on the number in option C, that particular title was the $63,494. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, exclusive of the benefits. That's the salary portion. Yeah, the benefits, it's about 90, a little bit over 90.
Okay, so for the total sum, if we don't have this particular title in place for next year, is approximately $90,000 that we can move into other areas. And is that what you did here with option C?
Yep. All three positions that are being discussed were backfilling positions at step 12, which are about, to be correct, about $100,000. The 294 we were showing is that, so that's about 294 divided by 3. So.
Okay. So I noticed that I wanted to talk about a little bit about where you put it in each one. I mean, the most obvious to me looks like B&G staff. You originally in option A had the 55,000, and then as a result of losing one of the three positions, you were able to remove that. Could you explain a little bit about what made you decide to clear that out from the 55 to the 0?
Just that you had mentioned, the board had mentioned about I think one person's analogy was potholes or something. So it gives you a little more flexibility for the unknown, like pipes breaking, bad water, that sort of thing. So that's where I went first.
Okay. And then it looks to me that another area was transportation, but that only looks to be like about 4,000. Is that enough, in your opinion, to get you what you need? Because I know when we went through it, I have that you said there was no cushion with transportation for that particular line. So I just want to make sure that the 4,000 was like about $4,300 difference now. Is that going to be sufficient to help you, knowing that this is solely for next year alone?
We have a shot. I don't know if there's a couple people that come in that go out of district more than so many miles. Who knows? But it should be. But I don't know. It's a budget is a look point in time, so who knows? We've been at 400,000. We've been at 200,000. We've been at 100,000. It all depends on what happens with placements and if we can get them there with our internal drivers. So at this point, it's the best guess.
Okay, so to me that it only looks to be about 60,000 of the approximate 90. Where else did you make a movement that I'm missing with these numbers based on us losing one of the three titles?
Just go to option A, B, and cross it over to C. You'll see the 50,000 in special ed carried over from A. So that went into C. The other change was the monitors that we got rid of substitutes. That followed through, so that was not a savings, but a reduction to cover the teacher. So if you just kind of look at B to C and A to C, you'll see where everything changed. But it was the monitors, it was the special ed tuition, it was the B&G staffing, and then the SRO, we took the 15,000 that we had in A that we just got, which wasn't in B, moved it to C.
Okay. All right. So I apologize. It's been a long day for me, but I'm a little confused on because the monitors actually was one of the ones I wanted to talk about because I know that there wasn't a cushion with respect to monitors for recesses, lunches, that sort of thing. And it looks to me that you still took out the 30,000 on C. Mm-hmm. You don't feel like you needed any of the money put into there to help that particular line?
I need it everywhere, but it's like the best, it's what we think we can survive with to preserve the instructional side. So,
okay.
Do our best.
And the reason why I was asking is because of the 55 being totally taken out of B&G staff. I didn't know if you feel comfortable doing that rather than giving a little bit of it to the managers. Or more comfortable, is a better word.
If we can, if when we do pass this budget, it'll give us, if it's non-contingent, the ability, if we start saving money on the B&G side, I can put it into the monitor side. So that's what I do. As soon as the budget's passed, I start working on what's going on for the next fiscal year. So hopefully that things stabilize in B&G, that I could put it over there if we need it.
Okay.
Okay. And you'll see that during the year when I give you projections.
Certainly, as board members, because I think at the last business meeting, you approved our most recent budget transfers, that although we start with the money in these lines, we transfer it as needed.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have for now. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So Kim had my question on transportation, Drew, so thank you on that one. And can you just remind us, because I didn't take any notes last week, on the admin line, what is the 26,000 in option C reduction?
Susan, do you want to speak to that again? The administration reduction?
that is increases for next year, Drew and I's cost of living, and some other minor items, my professional development, those kinds of things.
That we're reducing, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Pam, did you have any questions?
No, I just have a comment.
Yes?
I don't like not having a librarian, but when you sit and look at the whole picture, it's one librarian, probably for 1 year, because we are seriously looking at the possibility of closing a school. And if I have to give up something, I would rather give up the librarian for this 1 year and keep the reading teachers, because I think the reading teachers are really important for our kids. I mean, I think it represents like 80 kids that they could get in touch with during the course of the year for 2 reading specialists. And I think that's really important because we still do have kids who are behind where they should be in reading because of COVID and those couple of years that everything got messed up. So I think having the reading teachers is more important. Not that I don't want the librarian, remember, but I think that what you've done here is probably the best we're going to do. And we have to compromise somewhere. Our first budget we went out with was what we thought was best for kids. And we put in the 2 reading teachers and librarians over what the superintendent had recommended. And we all thought it would pass, and it didn't. So now we're at a point where we have to compromise somewhere along the line so that we can get something, the 2 reading teachers, and still now be able to lower the budget to over $600,000 so that it comes in at cap. So I'm pleased with what Drew has done here for this section, option C.
Thank you. Carjett?
Just want to thank Drew and Susan for getting this done for us in a short amount of time. I was just wondering, is there any way to, I'm sure people are here waiting to see option C. We've been talking about it for the past couple of days now. I'm sure people at home want to see option C, even though we're presenting it here. They can see it, someone can see it. Like they saw option A and B before, last week.
We can put the chart on the website tomorrow morning, but it's basically...
Just a visual.
Yep.
So to see what it is. We're just talking numbers here, but numbers probably, just so you can follow along here. And one of my real questions are, for the coaches, if you could remind me again, where we're losing that? What sport or just overall?
It's not going to affect any coaches in any sports. It's basically, we have basically carried some money for the sports that weren't filled this year. Mm-hmm. So it gives us a little cushion in there. Like if we run out of uniforms, I've taken the money and put it back in. It just takes that right out of there.
Okay.
We're right to where we should be.
Okay, and like Pam, sounds like what Pam was saying. So the reduction or the increase for the reading teachers and the librarians. So we're losing just a librarian for this year? Okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
And to clarify, it's not that one school would be without a librarian. Are we doing what we talked about earlier where it would rotate?
Mr. Arquette's schedule.
Okay, all right. So it's what we had discussed before.
6 days, right?
1 to 2. Yeah, 1 to 2 days would be dark.
So we'll be keeping an eye open on all the programs that are running through the library, correct?
Yes.
Would the principals have keys to possibly go in there for anything? Kids say, I want a buck or whatever, right? It's not like lockdown, right?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, because we talked about teachers needed something for their classroom or something like that.
Yeah.
Chad?
So with the library, is there any way that we could lean on maybe our volunteers there so that they could at least, we're going to have a day where the library is going to be dark, maybe we could lean on volunteers where they could check books in and out, get some basic tasks done. Is that a possibility?
I'd want to talk to the principals and Rick about that, but I'm sure that we could work on something.
Okay.
We have to be careful about looking as though we're giving unit member work to people who are not part of the bargaining unit.
Understand. And then on the Board of Ed line, I can't find it on my Chromebook, but it felt like we had a larger number we were dumping over from us. Is it still the same one, Drew?
Yeah, that was the convention. That was what I thought I heard, was to look at the convention, but the other stuff is kind of mandated, Chad, like your dues and certain things.
Insurance and for our incoming.
So that's all I could squeeze out of there.
All right. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That's all I got.
Anything else? All right, does anybody else have?
I have a question. So the special ed BOCES tuition, we have a negative $50,000 there. Are you comfortable with that? I mean, we went over this year on different things like
I'm
cutting that.
not comfortable with any of this.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. Like, is it?
I don't know, because we had 12 kids this year. We budgeted for 4 extra or something. We had 9 extra ones, so I don't know.
So if we have extra, is there going to be a place where we can still service it? We'll have to find it.
We will find the money. We'll work that's what I do. The budget's a point in time. Things will shift, and we'll try to build it back. But we will have to honor that obligation. Just like this year, I found, $1 million. I did.
But here we are.
Had repercussions, but we did it.
All right, I just wanted to check on that spot.
okay,
because
thank you.
It makes me nervous on that because we went over this year.
We have to honor our obligations to provide whatever is required by New York State law and regulation to our students, and we will certainly do that. Nobody feels that doing that is enough, and this budget would allow you to continue many of the things you have expressed interest in and that we all feel are valuable to children. It is not everything folks may want, but it is a very solid program.
I think Karnja brings up a very good point that I feel bad because I know there was confusion last week with the public as to what exactly was happening, and I'm afraid we're almost doing the same thing here. Through no fault of anybody's, but I think we're talking in abstract. Maybe we need to like explain what option C is so the community understands what you guys worked hard to do on here. Could Drew or Susan, could you do that just so the public?
Well, the board landed on a budget, second revote budget, that removed $614,964. That's what the board did a resolution on. The options presented to the board were the superintendent's budget from March 24th, which reassigned 3 teachers, didn't backfill them, or an option A, which maintained the 3 teachers, outlined last week in the PowerPoint, options A and B. C, which came post facto, was to try to, I believe, to restore 2 teachers, 2 reading teachers. So it just took the same cuts, but they were less dramatic on the non-instructional side.
Okay. So essentially, it looks like we're taking the approximate $98,000 from salary and benefits for the librarian, and you spread that out mostly between B&G staff and transportation
And
to try to alleviate those.
What was mostly in B&G and the PPS, the BOCES tuition.
Oh, okay,
Those are
and the
bigger-
BOCES tuition as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Okay. So those are the big differences with this new option C. I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Okay.
And that the 2 reading teachers
And they remain,
teachers.
yes. Something I'm hearing a lot about is just is a forewarning. We're talking a lot about finances are going to be even in a more difficult place next year. And we're going to be having the committee for the schools. But I've actually been very surprised by the number of people in the community and you've explained it, Susan, we've explained it, but the number of people in the community that don't understand what that exactly entails. And I just want to reiterate, that means staff, that
Yes.
that's the majority. If it's determined that losing a school is what is best financially speaking, unfortunately, it's staff. So I was really surprised by the number of people that did not seem to understand that, so I just wanted to throw that out again for next year.
I think part of what might have been confusing for folks was we had talked about the savings in terms of closing a school as being about $2.8 million. To maintain the building, which we would need to continue to do, is actually about $50,000. What saves us money is the cost of staffing. So truly, to undertake a school closing and think that you would simply move the people from the building into another building is not going to be feasible or possible if in fact one of the things we are trying to achieve is savings going forward. Drew will have the third quarter projection on Monday night. That'll give you a better idea of where we are right now. So yes, it will be staff. We will certainly hope that we achieve if we get to the point where we close the school, that we achieve as many of those reductions as we can through attrition, much as we did this year, or retirements. Yes, it will impact class sizes. I think I had mentioned to folks last week, we have 132 incoming K students as of right now. I remember years when we were at 200, 210. This is following the enrollment declines that are occurring across the state. So closing a school sets people's teeth on edge. I'd really like to coach it more, think about it more in terms of reimagining what we're going to look like here. What other advantages are there to 3 schools versus 4, to slightly larger classes? Are there efficiencies to be gained in terms of the support services we provide? All of those kinds of things, which are the discussions that the committee will have to engage in. So you folks know I am a pragmatic optimist. So I'm trying to look at this from the standpoint of, if we get to the point where the board and the community is in agreement that we're going to close the school, what do we do to make that good for our kids first and good for our community?
So,
Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I know it sounds great on paper to close a school. You know, we'll save all this money. I don't care what school it is, any elementary school we have here. Sounds great, right on paper. But the long run, or what I see happening, the staff getting moved to a different school that they're not used to. Yeah, we all have friends everywhere. We're a small community. We get used to that. You have kids that could be in first, second, some third grade, maybe even, are now changing from wherever school they were started from to a different school. And I grew up as a shy, have anxiety kind of kid. I couldn't even imagine what the kids will go through. They're gonna get affected. We don't feel nothing. I'm saying right now, we don't feel nothing compared to what the students gonna feel, what the teacher's gonna feel, and the whole building's gonna feel when they get closed down. They get dispersed everywhere else. One friend goes that way, one friend goes that way. That's what we'll look at. That's why the committee hopefully will help understand the difference. Again, money aside, which is great, but long term, how's it going to affect us? Because once school to school is not, it was a bad idea, let's flip it back on. No, right?
Oh, no, actually that happened with Glen Morton. Glen Morton was closed for several years and then they reopened it.
Took a while, right? It wasn't flip of a switch.
It was closed for a few years prior to my coming, so yes.
So that's what, I want people to understand that it's not easy. So we have to always think about that very carefully and understand the ramifications of that long term.
Right. And we'll dive deep into that soon.
Correct.
When we get there. We need to make sure we've got a line item budget that we all agree on. Once the spending cap, which we've already approved, gets voted for on June 17th, then that work can start. A good point, thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have anything else?
Yeah, our
Yes,
top priority right now is getting this budget passed.
Correct.
It's, the school will talk about next year, other things that are coming up. But by looking at next year, this budget for next year, we've got to get this budget passed. Because if heaven forbid this goes down again, we have to go to a contingent budget. And that'll mean staff cuts, it'll mean athletic cuts, it'll mean extracurricular things are going to be gone. And what's even worse about those things being gone is it's not our choice as a board which of those things go. There are all these laws that say if you're under a contingent budget, you can do this, but you can't do that. You can do this, but you can't do that. And we are going to wind up hurting really badly. Our kids are going to get hurt really badly. And we're going to lose a lot of stuff that we've been trying so hard to preserve. And so we've got to come up with a budget that we can agree on. It looks like we're pretty much agreeing on this. Not perfect, not what we picked. What we picked went down. But we've got to get out there and work and get this budget passed so that we don't have contingent budgets. Because I don't think anybody sitting on this board, except maybe Susan, has been through a contingent budget and understands how much of a difference it's going to make to our kids if they're under a contingent budget, not having supplies, not being able to use the buildings. It's just, it would be terrible. And so our top priority right now has got to be getting the budget that we passed tonight passed by the community.
Right, and that's why we're here tonight again, to make sure that we're all somewhat in agreement about which option for the line item budget that we're going to go out with. So that's our goal.
Can we just clarify for people who are watching, because this comes up a lot, because I don't want people to vote this down because they think there's an option we haven't explored yet, and that's the conversation about, I see a lot of, why don't we just have teachers absorb the department chair duties, which doesn't, I can't imagine asking the teachers to do more than they're already doing, but also I'm not sure people understand the department chairs versus the district level coordinators. And then the question I see with that is why don't we just bring them in and why don't they teach? So I think we need to clarify the difference between the department chair and the district level admin and why teachers are not department chair if we can just clear, because I think that's something that's going to make people say, well, they should have made that cut instead of this reading teacher. So I think we should just clear up that conversation.
Department chair people are teachers. They're within the SGTA bargaining group, and they oversee things like purchasing needs in their departments, talk to their administrators when they have ideas, perhaps for new courses, those kinds of things. They can't do anything involved with supervision, not because they're not capable, but they're not certified. And so in order to do, for example, a teacher observation, you have to be a certified administrator. In terms of reporting data to the state education department, you have to be a certified administrator or overseen by you. And frankly, being one of the people who can do that, and Mr. Arquette might agree with me, nobody really wants to have to go into the state ed portal, and it is a colossal undertaking. Certified administrators are required in school buildings, principals, superintendent. The academic heads are the folks who oversee their departments at the district level. So they are in the buildings, they are working with their teachers, they meet with them regularly. They help them to plan this year and last year since Mr. Arquette's arrival. They've been working very diligently on curriculum mapping, on looking at our course offerings. And again, those are things that we typically associate with a leadership position. The teacher's contract speaks very specifically to department chair people and what they do. The admin contract, which is what the academic heads are under, and the directors, such as Nancy, they do the things that they do in a more broad term. So, for example, Nancy's often at concerts, art shows, those kinds of things. She's not paid extra to do that. That is her duty. That's part of what she does. Same thing with Marcy Tabano in athletics at this point. So I think part of the confusion has been that people think they're two interchangeable things, that academic heads and department chairs are the same people, but they are not, and they have different roles and purposes.
Thank you for clarifying that. I think I see that somewhere at least once a day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rick, would you add anything to that?
No, I think you summed it up.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else?
I had a concern, maybe Susan can clarify for me. So, assuming one of the option C passes tonight, we're talking about a very specific individual that's going to be identified that we're unfortunately will lose. What is the process for that? Because I have to imagine it's where we're speaking in other positions, there's a bigger pool. This is a much smaller pool, so my concern is they're left wondering what's next. So I'm assuming building admin will contact them ASAP. How does this work?
Yes, once we know the direction and what's really going to be in the line item budget. One of the things I just remind the board is that even in the choice B that we brought you, the 2 reading teachers and the librarian would have the opportunity to move into elementary classrooms if they're holding the correct certifications. Sarah and I and Joe Bush and the principals met with each of those people, I want to say in March. Late March, when close to when you adopted the budget, to talk to them about their current certifications, to give them contact information if they needed it, or Ken Ziegler, who's the certification officer for Cap-Reach and BOCES. We encouraged everyone to make sure their certificates were up to date and current. And I certainly hope that people have been doing that. So if, in fact, the librarian has secured or is in the process of securing an elementary certificate, she could still go into an elementary classroom. It is the position, not the person.
Yep.
If she's not certified, that will be a different story.
So it's going to be a quick turnaround in this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Good question. Anything else? All right, so at this time we'll go around the room like we did and let me know A, B, or option C. I'll start, and I'm going with option C. Chad?
C.
Emily?
Option C.
Karnjet?
C.
Kimmy?
C.
Kim Furnish?
C.
And Matt?
C.
Beautiful. All right, so we've adopted option C as our line item budget, which includes the 2 reading teachers. So thank you, everybody, for the hard work that we did. This has been a long budget season with lots of work sessions. To me, that just goes to show we ask a lot of questions and we just don't say yes all the time. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate that.
And thank you, Drew.
Thank you for doing all this work.
I had a question about voting time. Do we
Yep.
need
So move on right now to other business. Go ahead.
do we need another board delegate for voting day?
We will ask you to do that next week.
Okay.
It is the exact same process as,
So, okay.
What was the question?
First voting delegate, because we'll have a new vote, so we'll do that on Monday night. Beautiful. Anyone else have any other business?
Congratulations to the unified basketball team. Can't believe I had to go out and see them last week.
They were absolutely amazing. They really were. But you know, the best part is, it's so amazing that they won, but they are just so kind and happy to the other teams, letting the other team try the ball again if they didn't get the, like, it just, you can't leave there without being happy and just very impressed with them. They are amazing kids, all of them.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, and I also wanted to mention too, the same night, and I felt so bad I missed it, that we had quite a few of our BOCES students get into the Technical Honor Society through BOCES. So kudos to them as well.
Same time, I think.
It was the exact same time.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other business? All right, if not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
Thanks, Jen. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Or abstained? So moved. Thank you, everybody.